Hello, everyone. Welcome to Law Firms on the Map, the go-to digital marketing show for attorneys serious about their business growth. I'm your host, Kristaps Brencans, the CEO of On the Map Marketing. Our agency has helped thousands of attorneys crush their SEO and digital marketing goals over the last decade. Today, I'm meeting with PPC Mastermind, Bo Royale. Bo is currently co-founder and CEO of Pareto PPC, boutique pay-per-click agency that specializes in e-commerce and law firm verticals. Through the years, Bo has managed multi-million-dollar ad budgets, and his career stemmed from working at eBay to being digital marketing director at law firm. And now he owns his own PPC agency. Bo, what a pleasure having you here. Thank you for coming on.
Chris, thanks for having me on, man. I've been looking forward to this for a few months now.
All right, great. Well, yeah, you just came back from honeymoon, so I appreciate you carving out some time from your busy schedule to chat with us.
Of course, let's get into it.
All right. Well, I think a good starting point would be just to hear a little bit about yourself and your career. You have such a unique mix. Usually people are very hyper focused on one vertical, but you've gone from working at eBay to being digital marketing director at a law firm, and now you have your own digital marketing firm that focuses on e-commerce and law firm PPC. So just give us the scoop. How did you get here?
Sure. So yeah, it's definitely not a conventional career path, but you kind of touched on this. I originally had exclusively worked just in an agency setting the first 10 years of my career. So I had worked at a couple agencies before I landed at eBay's marketing solutions division. And that was a company that worked with large enterprise e-commerce companies, Kate Spade, New York, GNC, Calvin Klein, a lot of household names. And that's really where I cut my teeth with like huge advertising budgets. I think one of our biggest clients was spending like $40 million a month just on Google ads, like insane budgets. But I quickly became disillusioned with the big agency experience. I felt like there were too many cooks in the kitchen. The impact that I was having on the businesses, it really wasn't apparent to me. So I did a 180 back in, I think this would have been 2017, and I became a marketing director for a law firm in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. But something crazy happened when I left eBay, and that was two of my clients reached out to me individually and said, "Would you like to freelance for us?" So these are my past clients at eBay. Right. So that's kind of when the entrepreneurial brain kicked in for me, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm good at this. I probably can just go out and do this on my own." So I let the owner of the law firm I was working at, I let him know, like, look, I'm going to kind of build this side hustle, and I'm going to work with clients on the side while I grow your law firm. He's like,
sorry, before you go further than that, what kind of law firm was it?
Workers' compensation and social security disability law firm.
Yep. Ah, interesting. Okay.
And I'm still actually involved with that law firm. I'm an advisory board member there now, but I'm not like doing day-to-day, marketing campaign management or anything like that.
So that's interesting. Maybe let's touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
What were the rough kind of marketing budgets for the law firm itself?
Without giving specifics, in like the $3 to $5 million a year range for that specific law firm. Yep.
Right, because it varies from year to year.
Right.
And were they focused on just Philadelphia or several locations?
Basically, the whole southeastern quadrant of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So if you were to break PA into 4 quadrants, it would be the bottom right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's so. But I still have a question. How did you go from eBay to, hey, I'm going to be digital marketing director at a law firm? Because the natural step would have felt like being in-house, full on, hands-on at some big brand, kind of like the people who reached out to you, because that would seem like a natural fit there.
I just wanted a complete change, to be totally honest. E-com was a great starting point for me. I mean, for those listening that have worked in e-com before, it is very, very fast paced. There are a ton more variables that you need to be thinking about and managing when you're running a PPC campaign for a client like that. So I really wanted to work at a company and learn a new field. And I think most importantly, see the impact of my work. I think that wasn't something I was getting,
Mm,
again, in that big agency experience, and more specifically working with the big e-commerce clients. The,
yeah.
the, the fruits of my labor weren't very clear, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. It sometimes felt like drop in a bucket, huh?
Exactly. So, and I'll be candid. The law firm experience gave me that gave me a feeling that I was having that positive impact. I
Yeah.
mean, this was
Yeah.
a firm that, they didn't have all their Google business profiles set up. They didn't have
Mm-hmm.
a website optimized for lead generation. They weren't prioritizing customer reviews, or client reviews rather. So like,
Well.
when I got in the door there, the impact I was having was like, it was immediate. Like, there were
Wow.
just things getting done that hadn't been done before. Even stuff like, call tracking wasn't set up for
Yeah.
this particular law firm. So all that foundation hadn't existed yet, and the first like 12 to 18 months I was at the law firm, it was all foundation setting. It was getting the site optimized for SEO. It was getting a live chat tool installed. It was
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the intakes that were happening, the people that were answering the phone were calling out key value propositions that were listed on the website and the landing pages when they were having conversations with prospective clients. So um, it was a lot of work, and I learned as I went. But it ultimately, like I said, it gave me that feeling that, okay, wow, I can actually see
Yeah.
the impact of the work I am doing now.
And I think you touched on something really important here. There's so many law firms that are still in this sort of, I don't want to use the word infancy stage, but they're ready to break out and start advertising, and they don't really know where to start because it's overwhelming the amount of like advertising options you have. But to what you touched on is it's the fundamentals, Google business profile, setting up your website, for just basic SEO optimizations, making sure your intake's there, tracking your calls. Like, these are pretty relatively easy things to do, which, any decent digital marketing agency should be able to help you with. In their case, they hired an in-house professional, and then you started scaling things up. So maybe let's switch gears a little bit. And I love the fact that you have such deep SEO knowledge as well. Obviously, as a holistic digital marketer, you do. But and this is a great example. Coming back to that workers' comp law firm, now you got the fundamentals set up, and now you start looking into PPC.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's your forte. What are these kind of pillars to focus on? How do you structure PPC campaign? What are things to think about? Kind of walk us, step by step through what's Bo's secret formula, or
Sure.
whatever you think is the best practices. Getting started to like going in more advanced levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of just said it. You got to start with the basics, right? And I would add to that. I think about everything in terms of funnels. I say this to my team all the time, and it annoys them every single day. I bring it up, but like, in my mind, everything is a funnel, right? And I think at the very, very bottom of the funnel is your website, right? Like, that is how prospective clients are interacting with your law firm. And if that isn't buttoned up, and I can be more specific about what I mean by buttoned up, but if you don't have a fast loading site, you don't have relevant information about your law firm, like you're not including your practice areas on the page, you're not calling out value propositions, which are just fancy. It's just a fancy way of saying what makes you stand out relative to the ocean of other competitors out there. And I think law firms get kind of stuck on that one because they're like, well, we're kind of like everyone else.
Right.
I think if law firms really sat down and thought through this, they could come up with 2 to 3 key differentiators and just hit those home on that landing page, in their ads, so on and so forth. But so starting with the website and the landing pages first, I think is very, very important. And then once you have that foundation set with the website, and you're feeling good about the content that's on there, then you're ready to start driving more traffic via pay-per-click. I think of pay-per-click as like adding gasoline to the fire, right? Like having a great website is a log in the fire. Having great value propositions are another log in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have either of those things, if you pour gas on the fire, nothing's going to happen. You're just going to put the fire out, or maybe the fire didn't even start in the first place,
Yeah.
right? So PPC, that is all about driving incremental traffic to the great site that you've already built. So where do you start with pay-per-click for law firms? This has changed over the last 3 to 5 years. LSA didn't exist when I joined the law firm. But I would say, first and foremost, you need to be running local services ads if you are eligible for that ad format. It's not available to all law firm types and practice areas, but like PI, workers' compensation, divorce, like real estate. Like there's a bunch of practice areas that LSA is eligible for, but I know like lemon law, a few other practice areas not yet available for. But I would say, first and foremost, get an LSA account set up. Get it verified. It is kind of a pain to get the account approved by Google. You have to provide like business information and information about like your license to practice law, stuff like that. But once you get that set up, that is going to enable you to drive the highest intent traffic to your intake team. So it's a cost per call ad format. So basically, you're not driving people to your website. You're driving them just to pick up the phone and call you. Yeah.
Very interesting. So you're super focused on just the fundamental aspects of the properties of what the law firm owns. So you said website, making sure the website's set up correctly. And I want to come back to that because I want to talk about landing pages, like sending traffic to unique landing pages that might not be indexed on Google. So it's interesting to hear from your side whether you send it to landing pages or the website. And my next question, actually, you already touched on LSA ads, but there's a lot of questions around LSA ads. So, since you brought it up, why don't we dive into that a little bit deeper?
Sure.
So let's say the law firm is eligible, they get everything set up, they get approved for them. How do you manage the performance? Because, the verdict that's out there is that you can't really manage these ads and you're sort of at Google's will whether this is going to work or not. It's not, as PPC, you can control the costs, you can control the type of keywords you go after really in depth. I mean, you can control the keywords, I believe, but why don't you give us your formula on running LSA ads and what are the performance impacting factors?
Sure. So yeah, LSA, it's not like, Google ads or Facebook ads, and that you have a lot of control over the exact keyword or the audience or the creative that's showing. It's really, you set up the account, you submit a headshot, you pick the practice areas, you put a phone number in there, and then it enables Google to start serving your ad at the very top of the search result pages for, again, very specific high intent keywords, things that are prepended or appended by law firm or attorney or lawyer, like the keywords that every law firm wants to be ranking for at first position in the organic results, and then also be at the top of the page for the paid results as well. So this is why it's such an important ad format and why you shouldn't be sleeping on it. I would say the formula, if you will, or the way that we have had success with LSA for our clients is, number one, setting up the right bidding strategy. Some of the law firm clients we work with, they only focus on one specific practice area, or they have multiple practice areas. So I think, if you're a firm that has just a single practice area, you should be using the maximize leads bidding strategy, the maximize call bidding strategy. That way, the only variable that you're giving Google to determine how often your ad is showing is budget. And I would say give Google as big of a budget that you're comfortable with. Odds are it's not going to spend it in full, because this is a very, very competitive ad format. Odds are you're going to get knocked out of the results depending on the time of day, depending on the location, things like that. If you're a law firm with 2 or more practice areas, odds are you should be using manual bidding so that you can assign a higher bid on more lucrative practice areas for your firm. So I'll go back to the law firm that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
They specialize in workers' compensation and social security disability. A workers' comp case is worth a lot more than an SSD case. So in that firm's particular instance, we would want to assign a higher bid on workers' compensation leads versus SSD leads. And I've seen firms that don't do this. They kind of just tell Google, I want the same cost per call across practice areas. And I think it's a big miss because, again, not all case types are equal. Certain cases have higher settlement values, and you want to make sure that you're assigning the right bid accordingly. So that's number one, get your bidding right.
Yes.
The other thing I would say, kind of on the note of bidding, is make sure that the general law targeting option in LSA is turned off unless you want a ton of irrelevant leads coming into your law firm, because you might get stuff that's, if you're a personal injury attorney, you might get someone calling about divorce. If you're a personal injury attorney, you might get someone calling about estate and planning or whatever it is. If you keep that general law option selected, you're going to get a lot of irrelevant phone calls to your intake team, and that's going to bog them down, and then they're not going to be available to pick up the phone for a potential high quality lead or a really lucrative case. So make sure that the general law option is turned off. Other things to double check here, I would say location targeting. We have audited LSA accounts where the location targeting was like way too specific. Like they had picked like 2 or 3 zip codes. And then when we kind of peeled back that onion and we asked that prospective client, like, why are you only targeting these zip codes when you can be going after the entire state? We ended up opening up the location targeting, and they started getting a lot more call volume from that. So it really depends on the firm, though. If you want to be really picky about what locations you're going after, that's fine. But odds are you're really not going to get a lot of call volume if you're only going after 2 or 3 zip codes. A few more basics. You have to have a good headshot. It has to be a high quality headshot, because that's going to impact, the click-through rate on the LSA. And I would also say make sure that you have good call tracking in place on your local services ads too, so that you can understand, number one, are the calls being answered? And then is my team answering the call, in line with my expectations? Because Google hasn't come out and said this, but I feel like it's kind of known now as it pertains to LSA, is that if you're not answering the calls, like if Google is driving all this call volume to your firm and you're not picking up, that's a bad user experience. Google is not going to like that. And by the way, Google is listening to these phone calls. If you dial in through a local services ad, there's this little message at the beginning of the call, and it says, Google is basically listening to this conversation.
Right.
That is a data point that their algorithm is using to determine, should I keep sending calls to this law firm or not? So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, if you don't have a good intake operation in place and you're not like picking up these calls and handling them well, LSA, either you're going to get all these calls and you're just not going to convert anyone, or Google's going to, catch on to your poor operation, and they're just going to deprioritize you in the search result pages. So that kind of goes back to what I said before about making sure you have a good foundation in place. Like, if you don't have a good intake operation in place, LSA probably isn't for you yet. You need to get those ducks in a row first.
And what about reviews? Is that a huge factor that comes to LSA ads? Sort of
Huge factor. Thank you. Yeah, I missed that one. That's a huge ranking factor as well. And the other thing I'll say too that I've seen is, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Google Business Profiles. I've seen law firms that are trying to advertise for a specific practice area on local services ads, and they have their Google Business Profile connected to the local services ads account. They have a lot of reviews, but then when you look at the law firm category of that Google business profile, it doesn't correspond with
Oh my God.
the practice area that they're going after.
Yeah.
So yes, you need good reviews and you need a lot of them in order to be competitive on local services ads. But you also need to make sure that your Google business profile corresponds to the same practice areas that you're trying to target on LSA.
I think that's a really good tip. It's kind of 2-in-1, because then you're going to improve your own Google Map rankings as well. Unless you're, I don't know, personal injury lawyer, and all of a sudden you want to generate some criminal law leads. That's probably, I don't think Google wants to send you those leads anyways.
Right.
So, okay. Well, that was, I think, some great insights on local service ads. Let's go back to PPC itself. So, you have this budget. Now, how do you guys distribute it? Do you put majority of that budget in LSA ads, or are you running also the traditional text ads that's been around for a long time, and that gives you a lot more of those control factors on where to send the budget and what you're going to get in return?
Yeah. So going back, to what I said about funnels, right? Mm-hmm. So if we think about all of our PPC tactics and all the digital advertising tactics that we're running, the website is at the bottom of the funnel. Then I would say LSA is slightly above that. And then slightly above LSA would be PPC ads targeted to very specific lawyer, attorney, and law firm keywords. So if you're a personal injury attorney, this is going after things like personal injury attorney near me. If you're based in Miami, best personal injury lawyer, Miami, things like that. So very, very high intent keywords that clearly, you can tell what the intent is of that searcher. They want to speak to an attorney, right? Yeah. So it's building out a campaign, a what you call a traditional PPC campaign to target those searches. That would be like, I would say those three tactics, like strong website and landing pages, LSA account, and then a very focused search campaign going after lawyer, law firm, and attorney keywords. Those are kind of all in that bottom of the funnel bucket. And, if you are really trying to be responsible and you're trying to be as efficient with your marketing budget as possible, I would say that's where you need to spend most of your budget and time at the very beginning is, again, website, landing page, LSA, and lawyer, law firm, attorney-focused keywords.
Yeah. Now, those lawyer, attorney keywords, do you guys send them back to your main website that's also optimized for search engines? Or you send them to uniquely created landing pages that, you don't let Google index those. Those are just high conversion pages strictly for that one visitor that comes in, gets introduced to the attorney, and hopefully converts.
The honest answer is it depends. We've done both, and both have worked for clients. We have clients that we've pushed the paid lawyer traffic to a dedicated page on the site that has been indexed by Google and is navigable just from a regular searcher. And then we've had success with other clients where we build a dedicated PPC landing page, and we include the form. We have an H1 header that matches the exact keyword that was being searched, and that has worked well too. So I guess my feedback there would be it's something that you can test. Like you can easily A/B test this within Google Ads and run a 50-50 split test on that traffic. But I would say more often than not, the typical law firm client would be better off just building a dedicated PPC landing page. You can use, there's a bunch of tools on Bounce Me,
of course.
landing page builders that, you can spin something up, set up a simple form, include your phone number, and then make sure that the basics of that landing page are in there, right? So I mentioned having a relevant H1 header, I think is really, really important, right? Because if someone's searching personal injury attorney Miami, they need to land on a page that clearly states we are personal injury attorneys in Miami. Like that's like square one. And the benefit of that is not only can you expect a better conversion rate on that traffic, but because you're providing a relevant landing page experience, Google is going to give your ad a higher Q score. So this is quality score. This is something that's proprietary to Google, but basically it's Google's way of incentivizing advertisers to provide the most relevant, engaging user experience post-click, right? So just a fancy way of saying, if you're running ads on Google and you're buying keywords, it's in your best interest as an advertiser to make sure that the landing page that you are driving your paid traffic to matches as closely to the intent of the keyword that you're going after.
Yeah,
right. So
makes total sense.
Yeah, and let's break this down for like the law firm that I have worked for and I work with still. If you are going after workers' compensation attorney as a keyword, odds are it's not best practice to land them on the general homepage where you talk about workers' compensation and Social Security disability. It's in your best interest to land them on a landing page that simply talks about workers' compensation, the whole process. It shows the workers' compensation attorneys for the firm, so on and so forth. If you do that, Google is going to reward you with a lower cost per click. You're going to get a better conversion rate. And ultimately, that's just going to mean a lower cost per lead overall. So you definitely need to make sure that you are providing the most relevant user experience possible. And then I would say incorporate that with testing. A/B testing is a great way to unlock improvements in conversion rate. Like I said, you can A/B test against the existing practice area page that you have on the site that's been indexed by Google. You can A/B test against a brand new PPC landing page template. Maybe it features client testimonials higher up on the page. Maybe it includes some type of new call to action that hasn't been tested before. But I think a lot of law firms, and I'll also say PPC agencies specifically, they get hung up on like all of the pre-click activity, right? So it's like, oh, is everything targeted properly? Is my messaging right? And all this stuff. And they're not wrong in focusing on that, but so much of the results that come from a successful PPC campaign, it's really from that post-click activity, right? Because at the end of the day, the website, the landing page is the thing that is converting a prospective client. It's not the ad, you know what I mean? So much work still needs to be done on making sure that landing page is giving your target audience exactly what it is they're looking for, and doing that in a quick, compelling way so that they actually are enticed to pick up the phone and call you.
I love it. What are some of your favorite conversion elements to add on these landing pages? You emphasize good headshots for the LSA ads. What are the aspects you like to see, or what you have seen work successfully? Like, what are the musts to put on the landing page?
Relevant H1 header.
Must-haves.
Yep. Okay. First one is a relevant H1 header. So again, someone types in personal injury attorney Miami, they need to land on a page. The first thing they see is something that very closely relates to that keyword intent. The next thing is some type of conversion point there. So whether it's a live chat function or a web form function or a click to call function, there needs to be a quick, and in some cases you can have all three available there on the landing page. But it needs to be easy for people to click a button and be able to contact you, right? Especially because odds are the majority of your website traffic is coming from mobile. I would say our typical client, 70 to 80% of their traffic is coming from mobile. So you really need to make it as simple for them to contact your firm as possible. So, having an easy conversion touch point or multiple touch points on that initial view, I think is going to be really important. And then, high quality imagery that's, been done by a photographer of the firm, like stock imagery. I think people have like an eye for that these days. Like if you're a slip and fall attorney and you just, pick a, Shutterstock image of someone slipping and falling, I think a lot of people will kind of see past that. So I think having like high quality imagery of lawyers, of clients, things like that, that's going to be good. And then including value propositions on the page is going to be incredibly important. So that goes back to what we said, like what are the 2 to 3 key differentiators of your law firm versus the other attorneys? So I've worked with an attorney in the past. The attorney is a doctor and an attorney. So he's a personal injury attorney, but he also has medical doctorate. And so like that is a really great differentiator for that law firm, right? And so talking about how we have a deeper understanding of your injuries, we can help you with this, like that's one example.
Yeah, what's your unique value proposition?
Exactly. And then I would say the last thing would be customer testimonials, whether that's in the form of like a Google business profile review widget. So like dynamically pulling in client reviews.
Oh, that's cool.
In a widget so people can like see the carousel of the most recent reviews, or getting video testimonial of your clients talking about, you know, I worked with so-and-so law firm, I had this problem, I felt hopeless, and, you know, because I worked with this attorney or this law firm, I got this great settlement, so on and so forth. So it's kind of walking the prospective client cradle to grave through the process that this client had, and talks about the results and all that good stuff. So I think client, if you have great client feedback and testimonials, you should be doing everything in your power to showcase that, not only on your PPC landing pages, but that should be showcased on your homepage or any other high traffic sections of your website, because that's really going to push people over the edge and make them want to call your firm.
And as we already established, to influence LSA ads, you need reviews. So that social credibility, so to say, plays importance all over the place. You know, if Google's telling you, hey, if you want to come up in LSA ads, we want to see a lot of these social votes from people that have been your clients saying, hey, you provide a good service, or even if it was average service in some cases, still it's a social proof. And you're saying transform that information also on your landing pages, in your website, everywhere possible, refer to those people to say, hey, this is a highly legitimate law firm and we have served a lot of people. Yeah, that's some great advice, Bo.
Thank you. Yeah, think about how you look for a restaurant these days. How does the typical person do that?
Right.
They have to read reviews. And I don't, it's the same concept for law firms. People really rely on other people's feedback to help them make purchase decisions, make them make decisions about, who's going to handle their case.
So what are some healthy budgets? People often get scared when it comes to PPC, because in personal injury cases could be $300 plus per click. Workers' comp, I think a lot lower compared to that. But maybe you can give us a little insight. What you have seen across different practice areas and how you distribute those budgets?
It's a great question, and there's no one size fits all answer to this. And if there was, we probably would be doing something else. I think so much of the work up front that we do with our clients is helping them define what a healthy budget is. And really, we just need to understand what the current financial picture is of the law firm, right? So understanding what cash flow is looking like, understanding what the average settlement value is for a certain case, understanding what the conversion rate is on a caller to a client or like a lead to a client, right? So we need to kind of do this napkin math exercise with clients first in order to understand what can they reasonably afford to invest in PPC before they even start spending the money, right? So you kind of have to go through the thought exercise before you even spend your first dollar. So like, we can use a personal injury attorney as an example. Let's say I'm talking to a prospective new client. They're a PI attorney in Miami. And they've never run PPC campaigns before.
Yeah, this is a great example. Continue.
So the things that we would like audit and try to understand first is, what shape is the website in? Do they have a site that's in good shape? Do they have landing pages built that we can start pushing this traffic to? Just making sure like the cosmetics and the exterior of the firm are in good shape first. And then once we kind of go through that, then we look under the hood and we sit down with them and we understand again, what are your cash flows looking like? Like, are you guys making money off the current pipeline that you have? And what does that leave in terms of like discretionary spending for the firm? And then, what is your existing conversion rate on your website? What is your existing conversion rate from lead to client? So that's basically a KPI that we want to understand for their intake team. And then we can start backing into, all right, if we were to spend X on this incremental traffic or these incremental calls, this is what we expect in terms of incremental cases for the firm. I think another helpful data point that law firms can use to figure this out for themselves is using Google's keyword planner tool, because that'll actually give you estimates on monthly search volume for a given keyword and the estimated cost of that keyword. So if you were to figure out, let's say, I want to buy these 50 keywords and this is the search volume, and I'm estimating that this is the cost per click and this is how many clicks I'm going to get from these keywords, you basically can determine, all right, this is how much I need to spend for that traffic. And then you can apply your website conversion rate to that traffic back into that's the number of leads I'm going to get. And then you apply your lead to case conversion rate to that number. And that'll help you determine, all right, this is how many clicks I'm going to get. This is how many calls I'm going to get. This is how many cases I'm going to get. So it's like this, again, a thought experiment type of exercise where you're applying the historic ratios that your firm has experienced for these different, stages. And that helps you back into, all right, this is what we think that we can generate with, this amount of budget. Then our work starts to be helping refine that targeting after we spend that, initial 1 month, 3 months, 6 month budget in improving the conversion rate on the website. And then also, we sometimes will have conversations with clients about, are you asking these things on the intake? Or are you including value propositions on the intake? So I know we're a PPC agency, but like we still end up having conversations with clients about like other facets of their business, because if we don't, like, we're just going to end up driving all this traffic, not have that feedback loop from them on like what is actually working, what else can we improve in your internal operation so that you end up signing up more cases. So you can't just hire a PPC partner and expect them just to drive traffic, drive leads, and then like have them wash their hands and be like, all right, I did my job. You need a partner that's going to roll up their sleeves and really understand which leads turned into cases, and what else can we be doing from a targeting, from an intake, from a budgetary perspective to drive more cases for the firm.
So say law firm doesn't have those conversion statistics on their website, which I think honestly in 80% cases that will be the situation. Right. So what are the average conversion rates you've seen from high value traffic on attorney sites?
It's another thing. It's varied so much based on the practice area or the law firm. I would say anything above like a 5% conversion rate, meaning click to lead, is pretty strong. But with the right targeting, the right landing pages, the right value propositions, the right calls to action, there's no reason you can't beat that. You can't be 2-3x that conversion rate. It really depends on the type of traffic and the type of firm that you have.
Okay, that makes sense. We're coming closely to an end. I have 2 quick questions for you. So one, you talk about 3 layers of funnels, landing page, LSA, traditional ads. Are there any other channels you guys are spending time in to advertise your clients on?
Yeah. So in this conversation today, we really focus on bottom of the funnel tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Moving up to like more mid and top of funnel tactics, we've had success with clients on YouTube, Facebook,
Mm.
Instagram. So both from like a prospecting and a retargeting perspective.
Okay.
So, going back to what I said about like having like client testimonial videos, those
Yeah.
can be a great tactic to be running from a digital perspective, more so from like a retargeting lens though. So like if someone comes to your website and let's say they
Mm-hmm.
don't call you or they don't fill out a form
Right.
or they don't
Which
book
is
a live chat,
95% cases.
right, you can nurture that audience by serving them video ads on Facebook or Instagram. Unfortunately, for personal injury attorneys specifically, Google does not enable you to do retargeting. They have specific policies
Oh.
about not advertising to people in dire circumstances. In this case, it's to people that have been injured.
Mm.
So that we've tried to get around that in the
Yeah.
past, but you can't. So we typically rely on Facebook and Instagram for retargeting purposes, and you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to just run. You don't just have to run client testimonial videos as a retargeting tactic. You can also run attorney profile videos and showcase so and so attorney in my firm is certified in A, B, and C, and he has reached these settlements. You can showcase your value propositions in a 15 to
Yeah.
30-second video. These are the main 3 to 5 reasons why you should hire us as your attorney. There's a lot of different use cases for video in terms of like nurturing your prospective audience. So I guess I kind of said two things at once there. I would say using Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and then also using just video ads in general, I think can be a
Yeah.
great way to further educate your audience about, again, what makes you different versus the myriad of other competitors in your market.
That's a great advice. I think because you can retarget not only the PPC traffic, you can also retarget your organic traffic. So now you're building a bigger pool.
Right.
Okay.
And typical law firms, we see like a lot of traffic before they run PPC. Obviously, most of their traffic is coming from like blog content, right? They're running, they've built blogs that are going after personal injury attorney that specializes in car accidents, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do after I get in a car accident? Or how do I know if my insurance covers, my car accident? Or like these very
Mm-hmm.
top of funnel searches where this person doesn't
Yeah.
even realize they need an attorney yet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of traffic is being driven to law firm sites from those types of searches. A well targeted and messaged retargeting campaign can really help take that person that right now is just doing some research and help educate them about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, maybe if you've been in a car accident, you probably should be talking to an attorney right now because of A, B, C, D reason. So it can help take that person that doesn't even know they have need an attorney yet, and educate them
Mm-hmm.
about the benefits of hiring a law firm, and more specifically hiring your law firm. So there's an application for video, really, I would say, across every single stage of the funnel: mid, top of funnel, and then bottom of funnel as well.
Yeah. And probably comes down to also the budgets, like you said,
Yeah.
based on the budgets, then you invest it. But from what you said, sounds like if someone's trying to get their feet wet, the first investment should be LSA ads and honestly just generating a lot of reviews and fixing your fundamentals.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Well, my last question for you, but now all this talk about AI and Google actually just a couple of days ago launching generative AI search. Where do you see search marketing in next 3 years? And not so much in e-commerce because I think the world's changing there already, but particularly for attorneys, where do you see search marketing moving to in next 3 years?
I candidly think Google is going to continue to take more and more control away from advertisers. That's really been the case for the last decade. Not to be a broken record, I really think that puts emphasis on every law firm and every business for that matter to have their basics nailed down. So just going back to what we said before, making sure that you have a fast loading, well functioning website with value propositions, differentiators, relevant information about your practice. There is going to be no substitute for that, right? That's square one. That's a requirement today.
That's your property.
That's your property. And I would also say on that note, we really didn't get into this, making sure that you have the right tracking infrastructure in place. So making sure that you are tracking where your traffic is coming from, making sure you're tracking where your callers are coming from. I think the firms that have their data intact are going to be uniquely positioned to take more market share over the next decade, versus the firms that are just, they don't know where all of their traffic and where all
spray and pray.
Exactly. So I would not sleep on getting your tracking and your data cleaned up. And I would take that a step further. We're just talking about website right now, but making sure that you have an intake and case management system that is pulling that information into the case file so that you can understand a year, 2 years, 3 years later when a case settles, where did that lead, where did that case originate from? That way you can start assigning an ROI to all these different marketing tactics that you have running, right? So the second would be tracking. And then I guess the third would be just keep investing in Google advertising and PPC advertising in general. I mean, there's a reason why digital advertising expenditures have continued to increase year over year over year. The tactic works. It's a very, very direct response, high ROI tactic. So if you aren't running on digital advertising currently, you're leaving money on the table for your law firm. So have a proper functioning website, have relevant information, get your tracking in order, and start advertising. Because if you don't, like I said, you're just going to leave market share to your competitors.
That's some great advice. Well, Bo, thank you so much for coming on, giving us a little insight of your PPC secret formula for attorneys. I think there's a lot of very valuable takeaways, from LSA ads to landing page optimization to thinking about your marketing funnels in general. So I really appreciate your time. Where do our listeners can find you if they have some follow-up questions or they just want to learn more information about you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can just find me on LinkedIn, Bo Royal. And if you ever have any questions or you just want to talk shop, you can book time on my calendar. Just go to ParetoPPC.com and there's a Calendly scheduler right there for you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bo. And might see you soon again with some new AI generative PPC campaigns if they start coming out.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.